The gap theory is a way some people think about the creation story in the Bible, especially the first 2 verses of Genesis. This theory suggests there was a big-time gap between when God first created the heavens and the earth and what happened next. It goes like this. God made everything at first. Then something really bad happened that made the earth empty and lifeless. The Bible describes this moment as, "The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep." Thank you for continuing to watch this video. And please don't forget to subscribe and support my channel, and click the like button, and also post your comments. This will help in taking the love of Jesus to this world. A long time ago, in the 1800s and early 1900s, this idea became popular among Christians who were trying to match what the Bible says with what scientists were discovering about rocks and dinosaur bones. Those who like the gap theory think this time gap explains why the Earth seems much older than the Bible might suggest at first. They believe this gap could explain the layers of the Earth and the old fossils that scientists find. This theory suggests that the unspecified gap, which could span millions of years, formed many of the geological and fossil records scientists observe today. However, one would expect to find a worldwide gap in the fossil record, with humans and familiar types of organisms above the gap and extinct kinds of organisms below the gap. Yet, no such gap has been found. The geologic column sometimes shows relatively abrupt changes in fossils. However, these changes still need to be completed, and humans and familiar animals do not appear together abruptly. The gap theory is an idea that tries to match the story of creation in the Bible with the idea of a world before Adam and Eve, which was messed up because of a rebellion by Lucifer, an angel against God. Some people think that this big mess-up made Earth formless and void, like it's described at the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis 1:2. They believe this event explains why there is evil, suffering, and why things die, suggesting all these bad things started happening before humans were even created. Some people also think there was a big flood caused by Lucifer's rebellion that explains why we find fossils. They suggest this flood happened before the big flood in Noah's story, but the Bible doesn't really say this happened. Trying to fit these ideas into the Bible's story of creation makes things pretty complicated. For instance, if there was already death and suffering before Adam and Eve sinned, it challenges the usual teaching that death came into the world because of human wrongdoing. Then, the story says the earth was without form and void, which are fancy words meaning it was all empty and messed up. Gap theory fans think this means something really bad happened after the perfect start, which ruined everything. They also see the part where it says darkness was upon the face of the deep, as proof that it was really dark and lifeless, like after a huge disaster. Next, when it says the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, they think this is God starting to fix everything up again. And then, when God says, "Let there be light," and light appears, they believe it's the beginning of God making the world nice again over 6 days. However, some words in Genesis make people argue about whether there really was a gap. The word "was" in the sentence about the earth being formless and empty could mean the earth just started that way, not that it became that way after being perfect. Most people who study the Bible think it just means that's how things were right from the start. The word "and" in these sentences usually just connects ideas or adds details. So, most experts think Genesis is just describing the earth as it first appeared, not saying there was a big disaster before. In simple terms, the gap theory is like thinking there's a missing piece in the story of how everything began, where something went wrong, and then God fixed it. But many believe the story just tells us about God starting to create a world that was empty and dark, then filling it with light and life. Think of the story of creation in the Bible, specifically in Genesis 1, like telling what happened each day for 6 days straight. God made different things like light, water, animals, and people, day by day. The way the story is written in Hebrew, which is the language it was originally written in, makes it sound like everything happened one right after the other, with no breaks or missing time in between. The Bible is considered by many to be completely true and correct, just as it is, without needing to add extra bits that aren't really talked about in the text. So, saying there's a big gap is like making things more complicated than they need to be, and doesn't match up with what the Bible or even science shows. Basically, the gap theory tries to solve a problem that might not need solving, because the original story in Genesis tells us everything in a clear and straightforward way. Most people who study the Bible and history think it's best to stick with what Genesis actually says, which is about God creating the world in 6 days, with no missing time gaps. Thank you for watching. Please post what you think in the comments. Also, please don't forget to subscribe and support my channel and click the like button. This will help in taking the love of Jesus to this world. You can also browse through my other videos in this channel that may be of interest to you.